Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today we're going to be going and opening up a bunch of chests to go get the new Mythic of Ullor, as well as messing around with it in some teams and just overall first impressions of the Mythic. So of course, as is every Friday, first Friday of every single month, we end up getting a new Mythic. It is exclusive only to the Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests drop table, and then it'll be in the drop table with everything else. So as far as this Mythic is concerned, it is a bit of a weird inverse of a troop we kind of already had, which is Vernalis. Vernalis ends up buffing a bunch of attack to your allies, a bunch of life, giving them some magic, and has a Faerie Fire Entangle thing to it. And this basically does the exact inverse of that. It eliminates a bunch of attack from the first two enemies, it eliminates a bunch of magic from the last two enemies, and it drains all the mana of the two strongest enemies, strongest being whatever has the highest HP plus armor total. So it ends up doing all those. If there is only two left, it would trigger onto both of those remaining two, all 6 of those effects, or all 3 of those effects onto both of the two. As far as its final trait, ends up freezing and Faerie Firing a random enemy when matching blue gems. This, of course, will be pretty good in anything that can end up spamming a lot of blue. However, similar to the other one that has to be used with greens, it is a bit unfortunate because, it's not based on extra turn. It simply specifically has to be that color. The other unfortunate thing is you can't necessarily do it with Truffle or Beatrix or things like that, where the other one had access to green to be able to do such a thing. This one cannot because they don't do blue. So they do green-brown. So we'll leave it a little bit more limited as to what it can end up being used with as far as blue spam. And probably going to be one of the main things that really holds back pretty much anything that's ever like this, where it's specifically only one color and nothing else. One of the few exceptions to that is red, just because red tends to have a lot of like damage mana accumulating options that kind of mix together that make it work. But most other colors do not necessarily, particularly blue. So this will be quite a limiting factor, since a lot of things that do a lot of blue, like Perpetual Blue Storm and other similar mechanics, aren't necessarily the best of troops. But it itself, overall, is probably slightly better than the other one. Its final trait's probably a bit worse, so it does have freeze, which is really nice. But its overall ability is quite a bit stronger. It is 4 higher mana cost compared to the other one, which is 20. However, that 4 higher mana cost is giving it a double full mana drain. And if you can end up negating out to the enemy to a bit of a smaller team, just from some skulls and stuff, can end up getting some pretty good value. End up replacing out the team, but one way that you could do that early on in the game is something like Mang. Throw down a Mang and just end up throwing a skull at them. But once you get their team like thinned out a little bit more, the chance that you'll be able to get the second or the double the double effect onto them, or getting the full effect onto 2 single troops, will definitely increase. Even once you got them down to 3, the chance that it will end up doing it is quite a bit higher. But anyways, let's go and open a bunch of chests, try to get this thing. Hopefully it won't end up taking too many chests, and then we'll go show a couple of first impression teams, and we'll go from there. Overall, though, I would say this one's probably a skip. Definitely not a necessarily must-have. It's not horrible, but oh, well, we got it in a pretty nice amount. What was that, 250? But it ends its turn every single time it does its ability, which is a limiting factor that generally is not that good in most situations. Of course, you can skip your turn with it on occasion, stuff like that, but generally anything that doesn't have any kind of board control tends to lose a lot of value. Even something like Azura, if you're looking to lower down enemy stats, can often be more efficient than necessarily going something this route. Plus, it's like half the mana cost, plus it's free, plus it basically uses the same colors anyways from the Merlantis Kingdom. But I don't know, we'll see how it does, and we'll go from there. Anyways, let's go get this thing upgraded and see what it can do. A bunch of things under upgraded, all the gnomes. But let's go get the one that we're actually here for. Get them fully traded. Saving the orbs just in case we need a billion of them. We already saw last season that we end up needing major oranges, so start saving them, though I think we have enough that it really doesn't matter, but you never know. But anyways, we got a max. Let's go put him into every single one of the teams now. Unfortunately, that doesn't make it so we're not selected on him anymore. But let's go put him into each of these, and we're just using Grey King as the little placeholder there. Though Grey King is definitely the better option in pretty much every situation. But anyways, let's go mess around with them. So, first things first, let's start from the top and go to Pure Blue. As far as pure colors, Pure Blue is pretty hit or miss. Main reason we're doing Pure Blue is specifically to try to utilize Vespera for this build. Because of the value that we can end up getting. But do keep in mind, generally on Guild War days, of course, the color of the day tends to get hard countered. However, since some people tend to hard counter blue day, red day, because a Zoogoth build that feeds straight into it with stuff like this, it's very popular, except the heroes not to protect color. But it's a really popular red offense day, so sometimes people use all of their blue counters on red day, oddly enough, instead of on blue day. So in those situations, it could be okay if you're like later in the game and people are countering that way. But generally speaking, in Guild War days, they're going to be countering the color of the day. So do have to be a little wary if going pure color, specifically for Guild War purposes. Unfortunately, we did not surge there, so he's going to get a little bit of value. Luckily, it is not enough to really do much. We can get a convert here. It is red to Doomskull. Unfortunately, we really just need that last little bit of mana, which we are ever so slightly short on. And I don't believe we have a Cascade. That's a little unfortunate. As you can see, we do have Freeze Faerie Fire all over the opposing team. He's about to get a convert, and it seems like he's probably going to get it green to blue. Green to blue currently does not actually align, so we can just go for some mana here and hope it all works out. Start spamming Vesperia and should hopefully be able to make it work. So right here, I don't believe we have alignment, so I think it is finally time to go for Vesperia. We do have the extra turn there and everything, however, we do want to get Vesperia rolling. So of course we just want to throw this directly onto hero, and ideally we want to be mostly creating blue and red, though of course we have no choice over any of them except the initial blue that it ends up doing. But we can convert away the purple if it does purple into yellow, and the red of course gets converted to Doomskull if we end up having that occur. So we'll just need to get our mana back up and kind of cycle it once again, get our mana going. And if we could ever get alignment on red, we could actually cast that. We can do it preemptively, of course, with all the Faerie Fire and everything, which ideally the value we want to get there. So right here, we still don't have alignment on the other one. However, we can just go take that over real quick. And I think it is almost time to cast this. We still don't have alignment, though. We're probably just going to go for his elimination here. So as we can see right here, we have eliminate a bunch of attack. Actually, it's going to zero them from the first two enemies. Then the magic from the last two enemies, which in this particular instance will actually make it so he cannot explode. He'll only explode one when he uses weapon. It won't do anything to Zoogoth, though. And it will also mana drain the two strongest, which, who would that be? That would be these two. So unfortunately, that is not Zoogoth in this particular instance, though I think we still go for it. And as you can see, that's everything it did. Though, of course, as we mentioned, Zoogoth was not going to get hit by it, and of course he did not. So that's a little unfortunate, though we kind of already knew that would be a thing. I can actually take this purple and then have alignment. I'm not sure if it's worth doing a whole turn just to set it up, though, compared to just casting now. So I think we're going to risk it and cast now, just to try to get something rolling in that regard, even if we take a little bit of damage. Unfortunately, he does end up getting the Zoogoth there, though it's not his turn anymore. We are frozen, so that's going to be a little detrimental. He did get the billion summon thing off his hero, so that's also going to be annoying. I think we just go for a buff here, even though there's a billion skulls on the board right now. So we'll end up going for that. We do end up losing our turn, and it does look like we will lose in its entirety to the Zoogoth poke. Mostly to resummon. If he didn't resummon there, we'd be perfectly fine. But of course, those annoying resummons always coming in. And not to mention, he actually has attack value now because of the resummon. Normally, he, of course, wouldn't have any attack value because we, well, just zeroed it out. But because he did end up getting that summon, little unfortunate there. And not much we can end up doing about it. Also, this thing can end up getting magic buff from it, making our reduction even more. Though its reduction is generally going to be high enough that getting magic on it's not necessarily going to make much of a difference. The only problem now is we don't really have a proper damage source, so I think we just have to consider ourselves dead to the Zoogoth cast there. So that is that team. Overall, not really too much. It's generally going to be dependent on what your damage source is. And this one is a little bit of a front-loaded one, so if we end up going up against a Skull Spam team, can have some dire situations like that. Luckily, this one has it quite a bit further back, as long as it doesn't get rope darted. It does have Tide Caller, which might be a little annoying, just because we are going to be going for the AoE method here, but we should be able to get rolling that it might not really matter much. So right here we do have a initial convert once again. We're going for the red to blue here. One nice thing about this is this also does blue storm. There's quite a few different ways to do this. Jar of Ice is another pretty efficient way. Unfortunately, the mythic that ends up doing it perpetually is pretty bad and generally not going to be used, so you have to find alternative methods to doing so. My big concern right now is Mercy doing a cast. So I kind of want to take a little bit of a weird move now just to make sure that Mercy doesn't do anything crazy. So we're just going to take that purple, which is something we normally wouldn't have done. However, we kind of need to just get things rolling. So right here is the first instance that we're using Deckhand. Deckhand, probably a pretty good idea to be using with this Mythic. Mostly because it ends up converting all the purple into blue, which unfortunately with Mercy on the opposing team gets quite a bit less value at the moment. However, still not too bad. So basically what we'll do here is just get our convert here, get a little bit more blue onto the board. Ideally just take every single last extra turn we can, and probably just start eliminating stats. So you might see there's a skull right there. We could pretty much just completely ignore it because it's going to get so much attack reduction that's barely going to do anything anyways. And then we can just end up spamming out our AoE and just keep doing that. He broke the submerge because he ended up taking a skull. He broke it again. Ideally, we could get a extra turn here. Unfortunately, we do not have alignment, and that made it even less likely that we'll have alignment, so that's a little unfortunate there. You could still go for it. I'm tempted to, but the chance that we'll actually land it is very unlikely, so let's keep taking mana from the board as it keeps appearing. We'll take this, we'll get skull distracted, and then we'll have another cast. So of course with all that faerie fire, we'll be able to get 50% additional damage, one of its 2 effects. Not only are we getting the freeze value, but it does end up getting the faerie fire. That is specifically only when we take blues, however, we are going to be able to take quite a bit of blues between all of the converts. So right here, we still have that red to blue there. It's not really going to do too much. I am very tempted just to go for the other thing because we actually have guarantee alignment here finally. So we'll do that, get a bunch of mana through that, and he feeds right back into himself. So you're always going to be able to have another little bit of mana accumulation that you can end up doing as a follow-up if need be. Right here, we do have red to blue. Unfortunately, the potion does just get converted to a normal gem, but I'll still go for it. Get another Dawnbringer down, and I believe that just wipes, right? Pretty close. Unfortunately, it has spell reduction, even though it has faerie fire on it. Still has a reduction there. Of course, at this point, we could go double reduce it. So, of course, since there is only one enemy left, if we really wanted to, we do have a skull here. But ignore that skull. We could just go and multi-reduce it. So as you saw, it ended up mana draining it, it attack reduced it, and it magic reduced it. So once you have the enemy team down to only 2 troops, you get quite a bit of value from it since you're going to be mana draining it completely, bringing their attack pretty much down to 0, and you're also going to be stealing their magic. So basically, they're going to become useless because their ability is going to go down to nothing. Even if they still have a good ability that doesn't get negated by magic, you still mana drain them, and then you reduce their attack by enough that skulls won't really be that threatening. So, yeah, and then you just win. And that's pretty much the premise of it, is you want to try getting them down to a slightly smaller amount, and then just kill them out. So I wasn't going to show a Mang team for this, however, I did end up opting for a slightly cheaper team of this version because I had a feeling this would work out pretty well, and it worked out pretty decently. And here's the cheaper version of it. This one's super cheap. It only uses 2 rares, a weapon you get for free. If you currently don't have this weapon, Orb of Winter, it is from 250 wins on the Glacial Peaks hero class, which is Frost Mage. Frost Mage, really good hero class, plus the team uses it anyways. So yeah, definitely make sure to get 250 wins on that if you haven't already. Really nice to do so. It's a great hero class to have, particularly at level 70. Though getting 100 gives it a little bit of elemental boost, so not every team, like for example this one, I don't think he's using a single elemental, but normally use it for 70 for that little bit extra mana. But same kind of premise, but we end up going with a much cheaper composition that is a lot more accessible to get. Of course the Mythic's still hard to get, but of course kind of hard to show the Mythic without actually using the Mythic. So let's go and try for Green Surge here. This is a troop that's probably overlooked quite a bit. It's generally not used too often, but it's actually pretty good as you're progressing through the game, as well as occasionally in if you're drafting an arena. Ends up freezing an enemy and then creates 6 blue gems. That on itself isn't too good, but it is boosted by frozen enemies at 3 per frozen. So if you have the entire enemy team frozen, that would end up being a total of 12 additional gems for a total of 18. In this particular instance, we can't end up getting the 1, so it would be a total of 15, assuming we could freeze the other 3. So right off the bat here, he is going to go for one of his blue converts. Neither of them really do anything at the moment. Actually, that's not true. He has the green thingy over here, so I guess we have to take this green. I was probably going to take this move anyway, so that's actually kind of convenient, so we're not going out of our way for it. He still gets a bit of mana there. His green to his other thing actually does not have alignment right now, if I'm not mistaken. So this is really good for us, since he's going to gain pretty much no value here. I kind of want to keep that, but I also don't want him getting that 3. He almost got a Cascade off the sky. That would have been bad. Really unfortunate that there's no 5 times or anything here. We do have 2 freezes on the opposing team, which means if we do this right now, we will get 12 blues. I am confident enough that that will land. I don't believe it accounts for the freeze that you just applied, though, if I'm not mistaken. So why are we using Frost Orb other than the fact that it's cheap? One interesting mechanic that it has, which is actually going to make it hit higher than Dawnbringer, though it won't have the barrier of Dawnbringer or use as many colors, but does have lower mana cost to compensate. It does additional damage per frozen enemy, and if you can freeze the entire enemy team, that's 20 additional damage. And we have the entire enemy team frozen as far as what we can freeze, since Zukov can't be unless we curse him, in which case we're actually doing 71 damage right now, and 15 additional just from the freezes. Obviously earlier on in the game, that is quite substantial, given that obviously it's quite a bit more effective earlier than it is later in the game. Let's see. Do we have a alignment here? We do. That's so much value. I don't think I want to go for it yet, just because I'd rather do it after we've already gotten rid of our orb or the other cast as well. So I think we're going to cast orb first, if I could ever stop taking extra turns. Okay, is there no more extra turns? I think we'll leave it as this then. So we'll get a nice big AoE. Of course, we get 50% extra from the other thing. One nice thing about this now, too, is Zugoff, because it has Impervious, actually did not take additional damage because of Faerie Fire. And one thing that this actually resulted in is we can actually now go and drain him right now. So he does not have immune to mana drain, so we can just do this. Boom, he's now mana drained. We also got the magic reduction on him, though that's not as relevant. And the attack reduction there, which is a bit more relevant. But now we can go do deckhand ideally. Yeah, we do have alignment. We might want to cast orb first, and then just go do deckhand. Mostly because we have so much mana accumulation from that, that should be okay. Because we didn't get all the way to the other one, but pretty close. 2 mana off. And at this point, there's only one enemy left, which means we go and cast them. We're, of course, going to get a double disable. Also, it's kind of funny how the cheapest team sometimes ends up working out the best when we end up showing these. It just works like that. The simpler, the better. It's mostly because of mana costs, because you don't have to worry about necessarily... Like, there's less variable in the team. You don't have to worry about it just doing something really bad. So, of course, we can end up doing that reduction. Reduce it down to basically nothing. You saw I tried taking a skull there, and it basically did almost nothing. And you just poke it, get a bit more blues here. Fortunately, there's only one frozen enemy, so it can't get as many blues. It does keep going down as more die. But we can do this, get our guarantee extra turn over there, and then just kill with the orb. Oh, he does have Submerge, though. Whoops. Whoops. And he gets a summon. Oh, gosh, it's Jar of Eyes. It's not over until all the summons are dead. Okay, well, he's going to make that a little annoying. Luckily, he broke his Submerge, so he's dead now. So now he's got to kill the eye thingy, which shouldn't be too bad. Let's go for this. Hopefully, we get lucky. Unfortunately, similar to the other thing, it does start losing value, but that's why they're up front, because once they start losing value, they'd probably already be dead anyways, so you just end up having them almost like tank for you. You can even put the deckhand in front of the hero if you really want to. I just want to have the other way around so we can spam it a bit more, since it is our only damage source. But it would be a little bit safer if it was held a little bit further back. But anyways, that is the new Mythic. Still need to go mess around with it a little bit more, but overall, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm going to be using it much. It doesn't get its full amount of value unless you can get the enemy team down to 2, or if you happen to already know going into the battle that the setup of the enemy team is going to end up working out for it. Doing AoE still does work pretty well against Zugoff, so it might be a little bit of a Zugoff counter in the sense that if the only thing that has immune to Faerie Fire, or let's say there's 2 immune to Faerie Fires on the opposing team, and you're spamming AoEs on the enemy, you can kind of assume that the 2 highest durabilities, as far as the 2 strongest, are going to be the 2 that have Impervious. Impervious does not have immune to mana drain, so you can end up, let's say it's like Zugoff, and let's just say like, I don't know, what else would be a good option? Let's just say Weaver. Like if they had Zugoff Weaver, you would know that those would likely be their 2 highest durabilities, because if you're throwing a bunch of AoEs, you know that the 2 strongest, due to the fact that they can't be Faerie Fired, will end up being the other 2 troops. So if you just kind of look at the enemy team before you go into a battle, you might be able to use him as a utility purpose occasionally in that regard. The biggest issue with this is he does not gain any value from his own Faerie Fire. Eliminating stats from the enemy does not gain any additional benefit while the enemy is Faerie Fired, which is a bit of a weird conflict since his own ability doesn't really help his ability. Or, his final trait doesn't specifically synergize with his ability, which is a bit weird, and it's just going to make him use a lot less compared to things that can directly synergize, like Queen Titania, which does Faerie Fire, but it also ends up doing spell damage that synergizes very well with that Faerie Fire. But overall, there's better freezer options out there, there's better Faerie Fire options out there, and to use this in a weird blue team that specifically tries utilizing it, probably not worth it in most situations. And of course, the main thing that makes almost any Mythic not worth it necessarily in most situations, not all the time, but a lot of the time, is just no extra turn potential. It has 0% chance to ever land an extra turn from doing its ability. And while that's not always necessarily a bad thing, and there are some that can still do it effectively, generally speaking, any troop that ends up doing that, not going to be too good. It also has a weird mix-matched kind of like, where on earth are you going to use this troop? Because you can't really use it for delves, you can't really use it for any kind of upscaling location, like Explorer, or, high-level Explorer. So this really only leaves it to PvP and Guild Wars then. And the issue with that is if you're using on Blue Guild War, well, they might be hard countering you on Blue. And the other issue with that is that basically only leaves them to normal PvP then, if you're going to end up doing it that way. And at that point, there's quicker options. So, I don't know. He just seems like he doesn't have much of a purpose. He does still count to Glacial Peak, so if you want to get an upgrade there, if you don't already have a Mythic there, or if you just want to get him for completionist purposes, there is that. But beyond completionist purposes and just having more Mythics in general, and a consistent Mythic that you know you don't already have, because that's still good once you have a lot of Mythics just to get one that you don't already have. It's better than getting a repeat of one you already do that's useless. But overall, he's not really that usable. not going to see much use. Might occasionally get used in like PvP or Guild Wars, but probably only Guild Wars, honestly, because there's just such better, quicker options for PvP. And yeah, if there's a specific team that's just going to really get hard countered because you know for sure, like, oh, they're doing scroll spam, they have a Zugoff, we know we're going to get the mana drain on it, we know we're going to get the attack reduction up front, we know they don't have a summon, because those summons were kind of scary in those battles too, because it basically replenishes their attack, and then Zugoff got value, so you got to watch out for that too. But if somehow all the factors align and he's usable, he could be brought out occasionally for Guild Wars, but that's like the furthest he's probably going to get used for. But anyways, guys, that's the new Mythic. Overall, probably worth skipping, but still, if you want it for completion purposes, or possibly the utility purpose that it might end up having occasionally in Guild Wars, then it could be okay to get. But if you're still earlier on in the game, this is definitely a Mythic you would want to pass and wait on for a later one in the future. But anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. The teams that we end up using in this video are on the description below if you want to go copy paste any of them. And I will catch you guys later. And of course, we got a new faction this weekend, so we'll be going over that very soon and be streaming that very soon after this video goes up here on the YouTube channel. Anyways, guys, we'll catch you later and have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye, everyone, and best of luck if you're going to be trying for the Mythic.